Hello everyone, you join me inside the brand new Mini John Cooper Works GP. What a mental little car. Now I've only got this for 48 hours, so it could be a bit of a mad video this one, but I thought what I'd do is I'd sort of record my initial reactions. It's about 9 o'clock in the morning, the car's literally just been delivered. I've just set the cameras up, got my microphone on, and I thought because it's going to be quite a raw video, what I want to do is get my initial reactions because this is quite a mental car and I think I'm going to be blown away. So yes, let's start it up and see how we get on. Right, so let's leave nervous me to crack on for a little bit whilst I tell you a little bit more about this car. So what exactly is it? Well, this, as hinted at, is the Mini John Cooper Works GP, and this is the most mental Mini you can buy. This car is also known as the GP3, and that is because it's the third generation of Mini GP that Mini have made. And with an 164 mile/hour top speed, this is the fastest, most ballistic Mini hatch you could buy. Now in the creation of this rather chaotic hot hatch, Mini have gone to town with the changes they've made to it over the already rather mental Mini JCW hatch. So I'm talking things like a reinforced crankshaft, a new turbo, a bespoke exhaust system, as well as changes to the suspension and the geometry setup of this car, to name a few of the changes they've made. And to be fair, the resulting package is a rather spectacular one. This car is packing 306 horsepower, and that is 70 more than the JCW Mini. But as well as the changes underneath, there are a host of changes on the exterior which are rather more obvious, so let's talk about those. Obviously styling is a matter of personal preference. I mean, look how I'm dressed for God's sake, but in my opinion I think the Mini GP looks absolutely awesome. This car's got presence to spare, and I think it makes much more exotic machinery look fairly bland by comparison. Now coming down the front here, we've got 18-inch lightweight alloy wheels. This car is also 10mm lower to the ground than the normal JCW hatch. It also has a wider track width, and that wider track is housed within these rather unusual plastic wheel arches. Do they look ridiculous? Well, that's for you to decide, but personally I really like them. I also like the fact that they're made from recycled carbon fibre, which has been sort of reclaimed during the manufacturing process of the i3 and the i8. Final detail I really like about them is each car has graphics on it which signify which number the car is out of the 3,000 total production run. So this is number 25 out of 3,000, and I quite like that little detail. Of the 3,000 being made, 575 are destined for the UK, just for your information. As we get towards the back of the car, you can't help but notice this rather excessive wing, and that kind of finishes off the exterior treatment that the Mini GP has received. Whether you like it or not, again, personal preference, I happen to really like it. It sets the car off, but it helps it look like a little mini touring car. Unfortunately though, if you're coming a little bit closer, I don't think you can see it on that camera, there is kind of a little flick that sits at the end of the wing, and that kind of gives the game away that all of this exterior treatment doesn't really do an awful lot for this car's aerodynamics. It's all there for show, and like I say, it isn't really that functional. Do I mind that? No. You see, I think a hot hatch should be about having fun and not taking yourself too seriously, and also about standing out a little bit, and all of this treatment means the Mini GP does just that. And with all that being said, I reckon it's probably worth checking in with past me to see how I'm getting on with my first driving impressions in this rather mental hot hatch. Right, let's scrap that. I think for the purpose of saving time, I'm not going to bother showing you my initial impressions. Instead, this clip, along with the one I played at the start of the video, demonstrate pretty much how I felt about the Mini when I first took it out for a spin. What a car! Oh, sorry, I need to bleep that out. What a fast mental thing. Let's link that across into manual for a second. Whoa. Yeah, it was a bit of a mental one to get to grips with on the first Monday of the year, if I'm honest. Now, I'm aware it doesn't look that fast, but due to the torque on offer in the GP, you only had to lean on the throttle ever so slightly for the car to take off. Anyway, the other things that immediately struck me about the car was the lovely driving position and a very firm ride. But yeah, with that bit of the video glossed over, let's see what I had to say about the John Cooper Works GP after I'd had a bit of a chance to process my thoughts. Right, so now having spent a little bit longer trying to get to grips with this car, although I will admit it's still been a fairly short amount of time. I got the car this morning, I've driven it around all day, trying to get some content filmed, so I'm now giving you some more impressions after I've kind of driven it throughout the day, if that makes sense. But what do I make of it? Well, my initial impressions are pretty much my impressions now, if that makes sense. So obviously the car is rigid, it is stiff, so when you're going around town and over bumps, you do feel those bumps. Like there, for example. Do I mind that? Well, no, not really. If you buy a car like this, you kind of know what you're getting yourself into. And I feel that a rigid ride is kind of just to be expected with a car like this. What else do I like around town? Well, the gearbox around town for the most part is absolutely fine. It just does what an 8-speed auto does. So yeah, no issues with that. Like in here, seats nicely comfortable, like I think I might say in my first impressions drive. These I think are the same as JCW's and what you find in other Minis. They've just got a GP badge there. And the rest of the interior is pretty much just what you'd expect from a modern BMW Mini. And by that I mean it is high tech in here, plenty of kit. You've got a screen here and another screen in front of you. I think that might be GP specific. Actually, I'll double check and put that on screen now if I'm wrong, but I think it's in the GP and the electric Cooper. And yeah, overall everything is nice. If I was to be really critical though, I'm not a massive fan of these 3D printed gear selectors behind the steering wheel. I appreciate they're quite cool because they're 3D printed, as is the GP graphic on the dashboard there. However, they just, I don't know, because they're plastic, they just feel a little bit cheap. I'd prefer it if they were metal, because I think metal would feel a little bit more premium in the hand. They are a nice size, maybe just a smidge longer, wouldn't go amiss either. Another point to note whilst we're doing this slightly more practical section of the video is that because there's no back seats, you've got a massive boot. It's just you might need a couple of bungee cords that sort of tie it down so it doesn't fly about the place. Right, here's a corner. This is where this Mini is good. And that is kind of just turn the radio on, turn that off. And that there is a prime example of what this Mini does to you. It makes you into a right little hooligan. Everything about this car just screams, I want to have fun. And then when you drive it and you throw it at some corners, the car still wants to have more fun than I can possibly have. Honestly, the way this thing grips and goes around these tighter bends is absolutely unreal. I've never driven anything quite like it. No matter what speed I put it in at, and admittedly I'm not the most confident with it just yet because it is very powerful compared to the other cars I've driven, but no matter how much speed I've carried into a corner, this has managed to go around it without a fuss, and it is mightily impressive. Right, I reckon it's time to get to some nicer roads now and tell you basically what this car is all about, because I absolutely adore it. Speaking of which, here's a national speed limit. Let's just slow it down a few. 3rd. Absolutely unreal, and that kind of hints as to what it is about this car I love quite so much. It's just great fun. My favourite thing about this car is when you're not in a town environment, sling that across into sport, it drops a few cogs, get onto a roundabout, and off you go. Absolutely brilliant. This bit of road has got loads of mini roundabouts on it, and I never really appreciated it until I was in this car. That's because you can just throw this at them and it goes around. As I've hinted at already, the way this thing handles and sticks to the road, despite the greasy conditions we've got, is absolutely phenomenal, and it is unlike any other car I've driven. So once again, put it across. I could use the paddles on the steering wheel, drop it one more. There it goes. Now I will say that this car is that fast that you do need to be careful. So that was nowhere near me on the edge of, you know, what this car can do. And that's because basically I'll be going far too quickly, far too soon if I put my foot more into it. Another thing I've noticed, and this is possibly just a case of me getting used to the car, is that because it accelerates that fast, I find the sport mode when you're trying to sort of do a, say, 0 to 62 run, makes more sense than trying to use the paddles, because your hands are too busy holding the wheel, trying to keep it in a straight line for you to be able to deal with the paddles as well. And that is mainly due to the fact that we've got a very greasy, I absolutely love this thing. And the reason you've had to hold onto the wheel, or the reason I've had to hold onto the wheel quite so firm at the moment, is because of the greasy conditions. Basically, this car is really struggling for traction at the moment, about mid-throttle, and the wheels will start scrabbling for purchase on the tarmac. It's a little bit disconcerting because what has happened, I might have it on video somewhere, I'm not sure, is you'll sort of put your boot into it, the wheels will spin, then there'll be a brief pause whilst the mechanical limited slip diff sort of figures out where the power should go. That doesn't work, so there's then another pause whilst the traction control lights up and that tries to do its thing, and then finally after that it will change into third and then you're away. Once you're in third and fourth, this car is an absolute rocket ship. It's unreal how quick it is. But that kind of faffing around, especially with the conditions like it is today, you know, just greasy, that faffing around is a bit of a shame, and like I say, it does keep you very busy on the wheel just trying to keep it in a straight line. Not necessarily the car's fault because of the conditions, however, with the amount of power and the fact it's trying to send them through the front wheels, I'd hazard a guess that issue would still be present even in the dry, but just not to the same extent. Here we go, look, you can just get around here, accelerate, accelerate, accelerate. There you go. And then we're behind another car. And another thing I should point out is, as you may have noticed there, when you're changing gear yourself, the gearbox isn't necessarily as sharp as you want it to be. So for example, if I now press it, there's a bit of a delay, press it again, it's just not quite as quick as you'd want it to be, and there is sometimes a lurchiness. Upper gear, yeah. Annoyingly, sometimes when you go upper gear, the revs change on the digital readout before the engine note changes to reflect what that's saying, which is a slightly bizarre one, but there we go. So yeah, around town the gearbox is fab, but once you're pushing on a little bit it isn't quite as brilliant. However, really, it's more than up to the job. I think, to be fair, I just prefer it in sport mode on the old gear stick, because then I've got less to think about. And whilst I'm trying to comprehend all this power, less to think about is always a good thing. What an absolute animal. This thing is unreal. It's so fast and it's so composed around the corners. I can't believe it. I know that sounds very patronising, but honestly, I'm blown away by this thing on B roads. I absolutely love it. It's such a little hooligan, and it just brings out the child in you. You just can't help but drive it like a bit of a knob, if I'm honest. Now, whilst it is all very well and good out here, the one issue I have found is the brakes. Now, I say issue, I think it's something you get used to with time. However, when I first went to use them, and even now to be fair, they take a little bit more pressure and a little bit more travel than you might expect before anything happens. And like I say, I think that is possibly something you get used to, but I feel like it is a bit of a shame in a car which is an otherwise a very immediate package. The steering response, that's rapid. The way the throttle responds, because of the amount of power the car's got, basically, that's rapid. And the gearbox, for the most part, that is also more than quick enough. So yeah, everything's really quick, but it's just a bit of a shame that the brakes do feel a little bit, I don't know, lethargic maybe. They just require more of a push than you first think. I do have a bit of a theory though, that might be because this is the press car. Basically, this is a car I saw being thrashed around by the guys that love cars, and it's also done 3,700 miles now, and I don't imagine many of those were easy miles. So I've got a theory the brakes probably aren't in the best condition. So yeah, what a thing on B roads. I absolutely love it. I'm just a bit annoyed there's somebody right in our way here. Let's go that way. Let's go that way. Let's throw it in. There we go. A bit quicker than perhaps I should have done. Purchase. Come on. There we go. There we go. You see, that there was a prime example of the car trying to use the LSD to find grip, and then trying to use the traction control to find grip, and finally it changes gear and gets to a point where it's just going fast enough that it can find the grip. A little bit annoying, but that's down to the conditions. However, I do reckon that even when it's dry, this car would still scrabble about a bit, just because it's got so much power that it's trying to put through those front wheels. Right, so how do we conclude this video then? Well, obviously I absolutely adore this, the Mini GP. It's right up my street. It's a riot to drive. It looks the absolute nuts, and for me it's just everything a hot hatch should be. It is fun, and it's proud about the fact it's fun. It It doesn't apologise for the fact that it's got aero on it just for the sake of looking cool. It doesn't apologise for the fact it's brutishly quick in a straight line. It's just absolutely brilliant. I love it. Right, as we can see, I was rather smitten by the GP on the day, so in pursuit of a bit more of a critical conclusion, it is voiceover to the rescue. Overall, I think the GP is a slightly confusing package. On the outside it looks like some sort of track focus special, but then you sit in it and you realise you've got things such as an armrest, heated seats and a top of the range infotainment system. And all of those things are kind of at odds with those race car looks. Because of that, I reckon the GP is a car for people who want to look the part and want the ability to drive fast when required, but at the same time they don't want to be slumming it when it is time to do the weekly shop or go on a motorway cruise. And personally, I'm a fan of a car that does all of those things. The car isn't perfect, but I think it is all the more characterful because of that. Oh, and on the point about the motorway, whilst the car is comfortable enough, it does appear to have been fitted with the world's smallest fuel tank, and that was a little bit annoying. So yeah, I've been Blee. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.